So here in this topic we mostly discuss about the concept on SSIS control flow and data flow. Hope you have understood the concepts of MSBI and SSIS architecture yesterday. If someone does not understand, I strongly suggest them to go to the LMS platform in Edureka and listen to the topic again. So these are the objectives. So always we should set the objectives first. So as I told you, in this class we will understand deeply about the SSIS architecture, and we will learn about the SSIS package designer environment, and we will know about the data flow components and control flow components. As I told you earlier, there are two important things in SSIS. One is control flow and second one is the data flow. So there are two important things. One is the control flow, second one is the data flow. So control flow and data flow makes almost a SSIS package. Okay, so these are the basic objectives of SSIS, what we are going to learn today in this class. So the first concept we are going to learn is something about the SSIS architecture. Very important to learn, and whatever you see on the slides, some of the information what I show you on my system, something may be different. Okay, so I strongly suggest you to take some background notes or to listen to this LMS audio, because I am going to show you something related to the system services and how the MSBI and SSIS works on the overall architecture. Okay, this is the very rough flow of SSIS architecture. So we have some few architecture diagrams given by Microsoft, and that actually when you look at the architecture, the overall thing you should understand is how SSIS works, from where it gets installed, where it is sitting in your server, and what are the services used to make that software up and running. So this becomes the architecture, and once you develop the packages in SSIS, when you execute that and how the runtime engine internally works, that's also very important. Okay. So what we have is, so this is the overall architecture of SSIS. So very important thing. So if you look at the yellow portion present here, so you can see the integration services runtime present here. Okay, so the highlighted yellow portion, whatever you screen. So usually yesterday we saw some SSIS package creating. So there we have taken one package and we have taken one data flow task, and we were creating the workflow in the control flow, right? So this is actually the workflow which we create in the SSIS, and data flow task is part of the SSIS control flow. Right? So usually, again I repeat, control flow is used to generate the workflow, and data flow is used to migrate the data from one place to other place. So this SSIS is totally integrated in Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is a software used to develop the .NET related applications. But the same Visual Studio is tightly integrated to the concept of MSBI, and we use the same software to develop the SSIS. Okay, so there is one important service up and running all the time. So if you execute SSIS package, so it executes internally in an engine inside. So to keep that engine up and running, there is one service always up and running in your server, which helps you to execute your packages. So we will see what is this service which is up and running all the time, and this is the object model. So what do you mean by object model? So if some people are already from the programming industry, so what do you mean by object model? So SSIS is divided into, when you look at the overall architecture of SSIS, it is following the class and object model. Okay, class, methods and object model. So the MSBI SSIS is designed internally using the C# by Microsoft. So using the C# program, MSBI is developed. So they use the concept of classes, methods and objects. So it's if in the future you will see some examples where we use the objects also to reference, so that it is reusable and encapsulated. Okay, so this is the high level view of the SSIS. But in SSIS, when you are performing ETL operation, so when I say ETL operation, you have extract, transform and load. Okay, so if you see on the left side, so you have few portions where you have the data sources, log providers, and all those things. So whenever you have whenever you have these data sources, right? So it means that it can be anything: Oracle, SAP, DB2, MySQL. It can be anything. By default, the ETL should have this. At the same time, when the SSIS package is running, it should provide some logging information. So if the SSIS package is running for 1 hour, let us say, so there should be some logging information present, what happened at every step of the package, so that when you come, if the package is running in the night, automatically scheduled, when you come in the next day morning, you at least know that what is happening on the server, and you can go through the different logs. And there are different tasks available in SSIS, but if some tasks are not available, and if something has to be developed, that can be developed using the .NET code, and that you can use as a custom task. Okay, so few organizations will do this particular custom task. Unless it is very important for your organization to do this custom task, or the requirement is very, very specific to them, then they go for the custom task. Otherwise, don't. Okay, and what happens is, once you have the SSIS, as I told you, you have that particular SSIS package will be having an extension called .dtsx. Okay, so .dtsx is nothing but data transformation services extension file. Okay, so internally this file will have a XML created in. I will show you how it works. Okay, and there is a system database called MSDB. So when if there are few people who already knows the SQL server, there are few databases which will be created by the system. So one is TEM database, master database, MSDB database, and there is some other data, which are 4 databases which are created. So MSDB database is used for 2 purposes. One is for the SQL agent job purposes, and the second is for the SSIS purpose. Okay, so once you develop the SSIS package, you can deploy in MSDB database. Okay, and there are some concepts called connection managers and event handlers. As I told you, event handlers are nothing but exception handling, and connection managers are nothing but, it is something like you can manage the connections of your servers and databases. If you are from a programming background, so it is something like app.config or web.config, which you use in the programming language, where you can change your connection strings automatically. Okay, and at the same time, I showed you in the SSIS designer yesterday, and it will have some wizards, and it can have some command line utilities where you can call the BCP bulk copy program and all those things. Okay, so the important concept, which is a data flow task, which is used for migrating the data from one place to the other place. So what happens is, it also follows the object model, and it will have a source, and it will actually do the ETL job. So what is the ETL job? Extract, transform, and load. Although SSIS is a ETL tool, the main ETL process is done by the data flow task. So extract, transform, and load. So if you see, extract from the sources, do the transformation, and load into the destination. Again, example, if yesterday we picked a currency data from a database called AdventureWorks, that becomes our source. But we did not do any transformation, but we loaded into the destination called a flat file or a text file. So the transformation, what are the transformations we can do? Example, we are pulling the currency data, right? So the currency data, it is always showing you maybe in the local currency, but there is a requirement that no, the output file should not have the local currency values, but the output file should have the standard USD value. So if this is the case, then we can do something, those kind of transformation in, those kind of changes in the transformation. Or someone says that in the input file, I have total amount and quantity. I have a sale, okay, I have a sale invoice transaction, and I have a total amount column and a quantity column. Okay, and what I need is, I want the, okay, example, I have 2 columns, one is sales amount column and quantity column. What I want is, I want the total amount. So what is total amount? Total amount is nothing but sales amount into quantity becomes the total amount. So those kind of transformations you can do in the transformations part. Very important slide. So please concentrate on this, okay? And this is the overall architecture of SSIS. And if I just come back, from this slide, right? Okay. If I just go beyond this slide, so what I'll do is I'll just go to my system. So Microsoft SQL Server 2014. So there are few things related to the SSIS. One is SQL Server 2014 import and export wizard, 32-bit mode and 64-bit mode. So if you don't want to create SSIS package, but you want to just import the data from somewhere, and if you want to load it somewhere else, if you want to just do the ETL operation, very basic ETL operation, then you can use this import export wizard, okay? And always you will use the SQL Server Data Tools Visual Studio 2013 for developing the SSIS packages in SSIS 2014, okay? And if I come down, and there is integration services here, okay? So there are few things available in the integration services, okay? So there is a deployment wizard we have, where we use it for the deployment purposes, and we have a data profile viewer, so where we use this for profiling the data. Actually this comes in the concept of data quality services, which is beyond this topic, okay? And we have some utility called execute package utility, very important topic. Execute package utility is something, right? Once you have the SSIS package ready from the development environment, in the production or in the development environment, you can use the execute package utility to run the SSIS packages. And you have a project conversion wizard. Example, some of your packages developed in SQL Server 2005 or 2008 or 2008 R2 or 2012. What your organization wants is, you want to migrate your SSIS packages from previous version to this version. Then you can use the project conversion wizard, okay? These are the few things available here, but I'm just jumping back to the configuration tools, okay? So in the configuration tools, usually you have a SQL Server 2014 configuration manager, where it will give the information about the different services running for SSIS, SSIS and SSRS. Okay, so what I did is I just open this configuration manager, very important thing. And one more thing is, when you are practicing SSIS, okay, when you are practicing SSIS or SSIS or RS, if you are not able to connect to a database, or if your database is down, or if your SSIS package is not running properly, please check this particular portion, very important. Just go to here, SQL Server 2014 configuration manager, configuration tools, SQL Server 2014 configuration manager, and this will open. So what it will show is, it will show all the services which are used to make the MSBI and SQL Server up and running. I've opened the latest version, SQL Server 2014, in the configuration manager. So what it will do is, it will show the 2014 configuration service. It will show the 2014 services, and also it will show the previous version services. So I have some 2012 service, 2012 installation also in my system. I have 2008 installation also. I have 2005 installation also. So that's why you see there are a lot of services. But in real time, if you talk about 2014, it's not everything. So whatever you are seeing with 2014 is related to 2014. Example, let us take first SQL Server. SQL Server is having, I gave the instance name as 2014, right? So when you do the installation, your name may be different. For identification purpose, I have given is the name as a 2014. So first thing, let us go to SQL Server. SQL Server 2014, this is the service we have, and this is automatic, but this is stopped due to some reason. And if you are using 2014 as a database to do some things, and if this is stopped, you will not be able to work on that. So what you should do is, you should right click and start this service. Only then you can work on 2014 SQL Server database. Okay. Okay. So let us come to integration services. Integration services, there are different versions here, 10, 11, 12. 10 is for 2008. Okay. This service is for 2005, which is 9.0 version. And 10.0 version is for 2008, and 11.0 version is for 2012. And this version, this particular service is for 2014. So we are learning 2014 here. So what happens is, you should concentrate on SQL Server Integration Services 12.0 SSIS service, right? So make sure that that is up and running all the time, and if that is not up and running, so what you should do is you should start it. Example, if I see my integration services is stopped, right? So what I'll do is I'll start this. Okay, so this is very important, and make sure your integration service is started to develop the SSIS packages, and once it is deployed, right, this integration services will help make it up and running. So previously, as you can see, previously it was in the stop mode. Currently it is running, and you can set the start mode as automatic or manual. When you double click this, there is a separate window which will be coming for the services, where you can set whether the type of thing should be a manual or auto. If you go to service, you can set whether it is a manual option or a automatic option. Okay, so I just made to SQL Server integration up and running. At the same time, you will have something for analysis services, which is SSIS, and at the same time you will have something for reporting services, which is SSRS. So all the three things are up and running for me. So this is important area where you should do the things. So these are the services which is keeping the MSBI up and running in the server. Hope you have understood this topic, and make sure that once you install these things, all these things are up and running. And if something is not working, just go there, make sure it is in automatic mode when the computer starts up, and you start the service manually if it is not. Okay, so this is the very high level concept what I told you, which happens on server level. Okay, if you people don't understand anything out of it, just raise your question in the chat window. So after a logical break, we will read out the questions and answer your queries. As I have explained to you earlier, yesterday we have created a package, right? We're using the SSIS designer. So in the SSIS designer, we created a package with the import export. So that this is what I'm showing on the screen is the SSIS designer. I just showed you there is a runtime engine. There is a runtime engine which is used to run the SSIS package at the time of runtime. So what is that runtime engine? SQL Server Integration Services 12.0. This is the service which will have an engine in it which will make the SSIS package up and running. Okay. Okay. So before going here, so this is again we are going deep here. So what I'll do is, like, I'll just give a very high level overview of these things, and what I'll do is I'll take up some questions. Okay, I'll give a very high level overview. I'll take up some questions, and what I'll do is I'll show you the practical scenario of some of the topics, okay, or some of the things, and we will come back here and to see if we know if we have understood the concept. Okay, so this is not a straightforward concept. What we do is we go through theory, go to the practical, come back to theory, and make sure the things are intact. Okay. So basically in the SSIS, what you saw yesterday is you have some control flow items, you have the data flow items, but there are logically, if you talk about that, there are different tasks where Microsoft has split into the different naming conventions. Okay, so the first concept what you have is the integration service task. So what do you mean by integration service task? Whatever is used in the concept of integration of the data are called integration service tasks. So there is one task called data flow task. I told you, right? Data flow task is also called as a DFT. Very important. When you go to the interview, they say it is a DFT, not data flow task. Or when you're talking in real time, they say it's DFT. DFT is nothing but data flow task. So data flow task is used to migrate the data from one place to the other place. The exact ETL operation happens here. Okay. So there are some data preparation tasks. So data preparation tasks, what do you mean by data preparation task? Example, there are few files available in the FTP server. What you want to do is you want to download the things from FTP server, and you want to put it in a local server. And once you have it in the local server, you want to upload that information into the database. So those kind of copying files or downloading of the files or using some data for using some profile data for cleansing. These type of concepts are called as a data preparation task. At this moment, don't worry too much about these tasks. What is important is how SSIS works and what are the tasks available in this, and based on the situation how you can use them is very important. So we do that in the lab example, we do that in the class example, what I will show you on the screen. But this is a theoretical concept, just keep this in mind, and we go there, we learn the concept, and we come back here to see if you have understood this. Okay, so no need to worry on that. And there are some workflow tasks. So workflow tasks are something that it will be used in the workflow. As I said, the control flow is mainly used for the workflow. Example, you have a SSIS package and you want to run some other SSIS package. That is called as a workflow task. Or in your SSIS package, you want to call a process to unzip a file or zip a file. Usually we use WinZip or WinRAR to unzip or zip the file, right? So if you are calling from SSIS package to zip a notepad, or you want to zip a file or unzip a file, we use some process task, okay? Or to send some email messages, or some read some Windows related information, or to create some event watchers. These kind of things are called workflow tasks. And there are few tasks which are related to the SQL server. Example, what are the tasks? Like it can back up a database, or it can create, insert and delete and modify the SQL server objects and data. So we have very important task called execute SQL task. Very useful, and it is almost used at least 10% of the total project in the real time. And we have few scripting tasks. Sometimes like something is not possible to use directly in SSIS. So what is not possible? Example, if you want to write some custom scripting to call something. Example, you have a executable task where you want to call that process, but once you call that, what you want to do is you want to modify some of your variables, or you want to modify some of your package tasks in such a way that it is dynamic. So there are few scenarios I'll show you. In those scenarios, you have to use some scripting task which is available both in VB.NET and CS.NET. But this is very rarely used in the organizations. If something is not possible in SSIS by default, then we do by scripting. Okay. So what I'll do is, like, I'll before jumping into the second topic, what I'll do is I'll go through the SSIS. Okay. Because if I give too much of information at a point of time, it's very easy to forget, right? So I told you some of the tasks, but what I'll do is I'll compare this against the SSIS design. Okay. So this is the SSIS designer which we have created yesterday. So what we'll do is, so we'll start a new project. Yesterday we have created a project called m1_edureka_import export. What we'll do is we'll create a new project, and whenever you do it on a local computer, make sure you run this as administrator. I'm starting SQL Server Data Tools and I'm running it as administrator. Just click yes. So what it will do is it will open a new instance of instance of Visual Studio, right? So let's wait for new instance of Visual Studio to appear. So this is the new instance of Visual Studio. So what I'll do is I'll create a new project which is related for the module 2. As I told you, you can give the naming of the project as module 2, and I'll put this as module 2_Edureka_ SSIS right. So this is my project name, and at the same time I just wanted to put the solution name also into the same file, and just click OK. If someone has not installed the software, please install the software as soon as possible and try to create some of the things, because whenever you learn the new concepts, whenever you learn the new software, the most important thing is you will understand the concept. You will know the high level concept thing of the concept. But what happens is when 3 classes, 4 classes, 5 classes, 6 classes happens, the information will be overloaded. And once the information is overloaded, you will not be able to recall what happened in the previous classes. So what you should do is, whenever you are attending these type of courses, my personal suggestion from my experience, so you better install all the softwares and start doing at least something. At least you know that how to create a new project, what do you mean by control flow, actually what happens in a data flow. So these type of things at least you should do. Okay, so I'm just closing this one. What I'll do is there is a auto hide option here. I'll just close the properties because I don't need it right now. Okay, so I have a SSIS package here. I can rename it by right clicking and rename. So what I'll do is I'll just give you the architecture overview. So I'll just renaming this as a architecture.dtss, or I can rename this as SSIS_architecture. So I have told you some few concepts about the control flow item, right? So let us go to the PPT. So I've talked to you about the data flow task, right? So where is data flow task here? Currently I'm in the SSIS designer. So on the left side you have the toolbox, and the right side you have the project related information, and you have a properties button here. Okay, and in the down and in the bottom you have connection manager section. Okay, and you have few tabs here. One is control flow, which is nothing but the flow chart of the package. Data flow, which is used for ETL purpose. You have parameters where you can dynamically create the things. You have event handlers where you can do the exception handling. Okay, something like try catch in the programming languages. And you have package explorer. As I told you yesterday, this is something like the Windows Explorer. Okay, you can explore the package. So currently I'm in the control flow section. So on the left side I have my few of the tasks. So there are 2 favorite topics. So Microsoft has already categorized these as favorites. So in my real-time experience from the real-time MSBI SSIS projects, most of the times these 2 tasks are used. Very, very important task, and it's very important you know in and out of it. You should go in knowing in and out of it. That's why Microsoft is given as a favorite task. So these are used in most of the times in the SSIS package. So what I'll do is at the end of the course, I'll show you some real-time examples of the SSIS packages. I may not run it, but I'll show you how it is used. Okay. As I told you, we have a data flow task. Data flow task is used to do the ETL operation to extract and transform and load. So once you double click the data flow, automatically the tab changes to here. If you are in control flow, when you double click, it will go here, and the list of items will also change here. These are the things. There are some sources which is used for the extract, and these are the transformations, and these are the destinations. ETL concept is available, is shown here, right? And we have some few data preparation tasks. So what are those data preparation tasks? Data preparation tasks, as I told you, to prepare the data, right? To download something from a FTP. So we have a FTP task here. Example, if you want to download something from FTP server or upload something to FTP server, then we use the FTP task. Or we have file system task. File system task is something, right, to copy the file, to move the file, or to cut the file, or to delete the file, or to create the file. These type of concepts can be created from the file system task. Okay. So we have few concepts like workflow tasks. Workflow tasks are nothing but, as I told you, so this is the first group of section, this is second group. The third group is the workflow task, right? Workflow task is something like if you're calling one SSIS package from another SSIS package. So if you are from a programming background, you already know that you can call another web method from one web method, right? Or you can call another class from one class, or you can call another code block from one code block. In the same way, SSIS also has that concept. SSIS, what it has is, you can call a SSIS package from another SSIS package, and that package can be called from some other package. So there is a process to do that, and for that to call SSIS package from other SSIS package, what we do is we use a package called, we use a task called execute package task. We use a task called execute package task. Or as I told you, we can use some SSIS task to zip or unzip the file, or to call some exe to perform some action. So the example we have taken is, example you have WinZip or WinRAR in your computer, you want to unzip or zip a file automatically in the SSIS package, you can use execute process task. So this can execute any kind of process which is in the format of exe. Okay, these are nothing but workflow tasks, right? I told you there is a concept called SQL Server tasks. So SQL Server tasks are nothing but which is related to the purely for the SQL Server related, right? So example, you have some bulk insert. Bulk insert task is purely SQL Server database related. So you just go to the other tasks, and other tasks you have some related to the SQL Server, right? So something like backup database task and all these things. And very important topic, we have execute SQL task, which is used to update, or insert the SQL Server related information. Example, if you want to update a table in SQL Server, so you can use execute SQL task. You can use execute SQL task to update a table in SQL Server. It's not only update, you can do all the SQL operations, right from DDL. What is DDL? Data definition language, create, alter, drop. You can do a DML operation. So what is DML operation? Update, insert, delete, right? Or you can go do a DCL, data control language, grant, revoke, deny, these type of things, right? And you can do any kind of SQL task. Whatever the task you are doing on the SQL Server, you can perform it on the execute SQL task. Very important thing, in control flow, data flow task and execute task are the topics which you will use at least 30 to 40% times in the real time. So even if you go for interview or to upgrade your knowledge, these two things are very important. Whatever I am highlighting here, this particular thing, this is the one, and the second one is this one. Very important. So make sure you understand everything about it. Okay. And we have few containers. Okay. So these topics, whatever we are discussing very high level overview, but we will have class examples and scenarios for that to understand more about it. Okay. So we have some SQL Server integration service containers. Okay. So what we can do is like these things, right? These are the integration services tasks. What we can do is we can select everything, right click, and we can actually group them. And what I'll do is I'll put the name as, just for the logical reference, and just double click on that. I can call it as integration services tasks, right? So this is just for the logical reference. So what I'll do is I can just minimize this, or just keep it aside. I can just move the whole thing here. Okay, so let's leave it apart. So if you have some formatting issues, what you can do is always you go to the format tab on the tab and just go to the auto layout and diagram. So what it will do is it has automatically created it as a diagram. So SSIS will take care of the format. So these are the integration services tasks. So what I'll do is like I'll go to the next topic, which are the for each loop containers. So if you are already having the knowledge about the software, usually we use the concept of loop. Okay. So what is the concept of loop? To do the same action multiple times, we use the concept of loop. So in the Java and .NET terminology, we have the concept of for each loop also. When you have the list of items or list of enumerators where you want to loop it, then we use the concept of for each loop. But what is for each loop? How it is used in SSIS? For those persons who does not have a programming background, I will tell you. Please don't worry about that. So this explanation is for the people who has a background on that industry. Okay. So we have for each loop container, for loop container, sequence container. So there is a separate section given by Microsoft for this one. These are the very important tasks used in real time. Okay, apart from data flow task and control flow task, containers are the very important tasks which are used in the real time. Example, you have 3 containers. So one is a for loop container. What it will do is it will execute the same set of block multiple times. Example, if you want to run a particular set of block 100 times, then you can use the for loop container. So what is for each loop container? For each loop container is something like, example, you have a folder and you have 100 files in it. Okay, what you want to do is, whatever the files available in that folder, take each and every file and load into your system. If the folder has 1000 files, do it for 1000 times. If the folder has 50 times, do it for 50 times. These type of item related or some enumerator related concepts can be done by using a concept called for each loop container. And then we have a concept called sequence container to run the things in a sequential manner. So that is the importance of the sequence container. So when we do the real time, you will know more about it. Okay. So what I'll do is, in the same way, what I'll do is I'll just select everything and right click and group them, and I'll do it as a, and just I'll rename it as, you just come outside of it and click here and double click here, or just press F2 on your computer. Okay, I'll put it as containers and I'll leave it for the format to Microsoft to decide the diagram. So these are the integration services tasks. What it did is it has pushed the containers inside that. So let us bring outside it, and what is auto layout diagram. Okay, it is going on the right side, so that's okay. So the containers are on the right side. So just remember that it is on the right side. And we have the concept of event handlers, right? So where are the event handlers? Event handlers, what is the concept of event handler? Event handler is nothing but it is a temporary data storage where the package or task finishes running, right? Retrieve system information to assess resource availability before the package runs. So it is something like, I already told you, event handlers are the concepts related to the try catch, or it is used to do the exception handling, right? So we have the concept of event handling by default by Microsoft. Okay, but if you want to handle an event manually, then you can handle it through the control flow task also. Example, if some process is failing and what you want to do is you want to send an email to some administrator, then you can use a email task, send email task, right? So if you want to give some information as if you want to give some information to a particular resource that a process is pass or success, so you want to perform a particular task. So those type of tasks are called as the event handler task. By default Microsoft gives that, but if you want to do any customization, you can use some of the tasks from the control flow. Okay, so these are something about the control flow items. Okay, so there is more about that, but what I'll do is, like, next topics we have is something related to the data flow, and we have some deep understanding about the control flow. So what I'll do is, I'm not telling you something about the data flow here. We have, after a few slides, we have the concept of data flow. Okay, what I'll do is, I'll come back here to make you understand about the data flow, and we will continue those topics. So I'm just leaving these data flow topics here, and I'm just going to the control flow. So as I said, like, this topic is, I mean, logically the topic is completed. So what I'll do is, I'll go through the list of questions, okay, in the GoToWebinar, and just see if there are any few questions available. Oh, that's great. So I have one question from Narayanan, a very active participant. During the installation of SQL Server 2014, why do we have to take 32-bit version? Is there any problem if I select 64-bit version? Also, what are the difference between these two? Okay, that's a good question. So what happens is, Microsoft, when they have designed this particular Visual Studio or Microsoft Business Intelligence Development Studio, this actually is written in 32-bit mode. the code was written in 32-bit mode. Okay, so by default, even if your system is a 64-bit system, that internal SSIS engine which is built in C hash is actually running in the 32-bit mode. Okay, so when you install SQL Server 2014, so by default Microsoft does not give any option. Microsoft will give you the option for 32-bit and 64-bit, right? So before 2014, everything was running in the 32-bit mode. So even if you install 64-bit computer, you used to get a 32-bit version of it. But right now, like, if you can select the 64-bit version based on your computer configuration. Okay. And I have another question from Bhaskar Raju. SSIS architecture is more more explanation. Can you give how the ETL job executes an SSIS engine? What are the main parts in SSIS engine? Can you give me how ETL job? Okay. So this will be the, I think if you just hear about the question is something like this. Bhaskar is asking that, can you give me how ETL job executes an SSIS engine? What are the main parts in SSIS engine? Okay. So what happens is, okay, so I already told you that in SSIS architecture, but I'll try to give you some more information about it. So what happens is, whenever you create a SSIS package, there is a service which is a integration service, which is available here. This will actually make sure that SSIS package is running. But internal to that, there is some process in the runtime which is getting executed. So how it is executing and all those things, we have a separate architecture diagram for that. Example on the overall, how can I tell you is, there is from the Microsoft, there is a process called dtutil and dtexec. There are two concepts. So dtutil is nothing but the utility to execute the packages. Dtutil is a utility to execute number of packages at the same time. Okay, and there is another thing called dtexec, data transformation executable, which is an executable file, which is an executable command to run a SSIS package. So this will run in the runtime in the CLR, in a common language runtime inside this service. So this is very internal to the service. Okay, so what it does is something like the .NET. What it does, it takes everything, and dtexec will be called internally, and it will internally run and make sure that the buffer is available and it is making use of the resources and all the resources of the system, whatever we have configured it is using. So it will check all those things and internally run it. So this is something inside to that, but more information you can get it from the Microsoft about the runtime engine of SSIS. I'll try to give that slides to Edureka. You can have a look of that. Okay, so one other question is, data flow task is a sequential mode or a parallel mode? This can be parallel mode. Very good question. Whether it is a sequential or parallel, you can design it to be a sequence, but at the same time we can design it to be a parallel also. The data flow task, example, you have 3 or 4 data flow tasks. Okay, you can have them data flow tasks run parallelly, but there is a limitation for that. What is the limitation? It depends on the number of cores in your server. Example, so let me take another notepad. You are running your SSIS package in a 4-core server. Okay, if you are running your SSIS package in a 4-core server, then the maximum number of parallel processing you can do in SSIS is n+2, which is nothing but 4+2. You can have 6 parallel data flow tasks, which is DFT, or anything. It need not be DFT. You can do anything in parallel, but what happens is, depends on the number of cores in the server. If it is a 4-core server, then it is n+2, which is 4+2, which becomes 6. Sometimes, like in my servers, in my projects, we have 8-core servers, right? So if it is 8-core servers, what happens is, it will be 10 parallel. This is a very important interview question also. Okay, so they will ask you how many number of parallel processing, whether the parallel processing technique is available in SSIS, or if it is there, then how many number of parallel processing you can do. The answer is, depends on the number of cores available in the server, and then we have to do a +2. Okay. Yeah, so the question is, if it is parallel, do we need to set the configuration? Yes, there is a place where you can set the configuration in SSIS. If you go to the control flow and go to the properties, and you can set the number of parallel processing. I'll show you those deeper things later, right? So the other question is, what is the default core server, normal organizations? Usually if I take my laptop nowadays, it's a dual core processor, right? So the normal laptops or desktops nowadays we are buying are dual core processors. It's very, very normal. So if you go to any organization, usually it will be a quad core processor. That's a very normal. Okay. Example, some of my servers in my previous company or current company, we had quad core processors, which is 6 parallel things we can run at a time. But nowadays with the latest configurations and the memory and the other things getting cheaper in the hardware, we are going for octa-core. Octa-core is nothing but 8-core processor. So, but usually in your laptop nowadays it is a dual core. Otherwise in your organization it will be minimum quad core, or it can go to octa-core or hexa-core. Yep, dual core is 2-core, right? So the other question we have is, can we execute DFT process and data preparation task in parallel? Yes, you can do. You can do any task in parallel, but the number of parallel things will be depending on the number of cores. Example, if I go to here, I can execute these things in parallel. I can execute these things in parallel because I don't have any connection between them, any sequence between them. I can execute everything as parallel. But what happens is, the number of parallel processing is only number of cores +2. In this computer, it's my laptop is a dual core laptop, so it is only 4 times it can run, right? I'm just seeing if I have missed anything. Okay, great. Looks like I've answered all the questions. Sometimes, like if I miss answering any of the questions, right? So my apologies for that. But what you can do is, like, you can copy the same statement, and you can, when I'm talking about the question, you can copy the same thing and you can paste it in the bottom if I'm not taking your topic, so that at least I don't miss your thing, right? So sometimes, like, it's possible due to the many questions, some of the questions may be skipped, right? But what I want is, like, everyone to have the sharing of the knowledge and come up with the questions so that everybody can benefit out of that, right? So these are the few questions raised by the audience. So hope we have the answers for it. But when we do the SSIS related things, I'll try to show you what we do it in the real time. Not only whatever we talk about the slides, it's okay, but at the same time, when I talk most of the things on the real time basis, where you can actually use that property. Okay? So these are the few things available. These are the few things available in the control flow items. Okay, so Bhaskar was asking one of the questions, right? How can we set the configuration for the parallel processing, right? So what I did is, I just go to the control flow, right click and just go to properties, okay? And I have a different properties here. So I have maximum concurrent executables. So I have a property called maximum concurrent executables. It is set to -1 by default. So what does that mean? If you set that -1, it will take the highest parallel processing. What do you mean by highest parallel processing? It depends on the number of cores in your process, number of cores in your server +2. So if it is a quad core processor, it will automatically take 6. So you need not set it. Example, if you don't want heavy parallel processing to be done in your server, then you set a number. You set it as a 3 or you set it as a 2. Otherwise, don't set it. Leave it default as -1. It will automatically take care. So this is a property where you have to set. Okay. Okay. So let me go back a little bit deeper. But what I'll do is, like, I'll just go to the slide. Okay. So one more question I have from Bhavin is how SSIS can identify which two processes to run in parallel. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so what SSIS will do is, actually it doesn't have any priority. So if you don't set the sequence, we have the concept of sequence container. If you don't use the concept of sequence container, or if you don't link them to run on priority, Actually, it can take any of the two things and run. So it does not know that. So as a developer, logically we have to put that. Okay. Great. So I'm just jumping back to the control flow. So I said, as I told you yesterday, control flow is something, right? Control flow is something that is used as a flow chart, right? And we have taken an example of a person going to a telephone booth and calling a person. So he will go to the telephone booth, just put the coin and dial the number. If the call connects, he will talk to the person and disconnect the call. If the call does not connect, he will try it again, maybe 2 or 3 times, and he'll talk to the person and disconnect it again. So there is a flow chart for this one, right? So for everything, for every process, if you take any business scenario, for everything we'll have a flow chart. So those flow chart can be controlled in the control flow, right? So control flow is where the operation tasks are defined, right? It is used to define the flow chart. So as I showed you just now on the Visual Studio, you can execute a TSQL statement, which is a DDL, DML, and DCL or TCL command. Okay, and you can email error details using the sendmail task or some logging events. You can back up a database. I mean, these are the few things what I've given in the slide, but it does not restrict to that, right? It also defines a workflow that executes these tasks in a specific order. So what happens if task A fails, then send an email, or just if the task A does not fail, just back up database. So you can do the things in a specific manner. So maybe you can consider this as a flow task, flow chart. We are doing several tasks, 3 tasks in parallel, and once three tasks are completed, just execute one container for me. Say it as for each loop container and do one task. And once this is completed, do these 2 things in parallel. Just go here and just go here. And when everything, the whole process is running, run this process and this as in the parallel. So this is how we can define a flow chart. So you'll understand more about it only when you work on it, and when you develop SSIS package and when you execute it, right? This is the theoretical concept. Okay, so as I was showing you some of the control flow items, there are few things which where it has where you want to learn about some few things. One is a task, right? So what I told you about the task can be some execute SQL task, or it can be a backup database task, or a file FTP task, or it can be a data flow task. So a task gives a functionality to perform some action. So these are the workflow objects which perform jobs at the operation level, right? So to move, example, data flow task, execute SQL task, these are the things which we'll be doing at the operation level, right? And there are some few containers. I told you the containers, there are few containers, right? So what are the containers we have? For loop container, for each loop container, and we have sequence container. So what it will do, actually it will not do a physical movement, right? What it will do is it will help the process to run for multiple times. Example, for loop will run the process, can run the process for 100 times. For each loop can run the process for the number of files in a folder, or it can run the process for number of lists available in a particular object, right? You can, and the sequence container is used to make the things available in the sequence. So these are the things which are used only to make the processes stronger, so that it is very customized and very dynamic in nature for your projects. And there is a concept called precedence constraints, so which we did not discuss. Precedence constraints is nothing but what should happen next once a particular task or a container is executed. Example, let us take a data flow task. So what I am doing is, what I want to do is, here I want to load the currency. Load currency from Excel to SQL table. So I want to load a currency file from Excel file to Excel table. I'll double click on it. I'll do the ETL operation here. I'll take a Excel source and SQL server destination and perform the action here. But what should I do after completing this? After completing this, please execute one SQL task. So what is the connection between these two and here and here? There is a green arrow coming out of it. This is called a precedence constraint. A green arrow coming out of it, right? So what I'll do is I'll connect this to this. So now SSIS will understand that after running this, for this there is no connection. So what it will do is it will execute this as a first step. It is something like a flow chart, as it said, right? So if there is no connection, it will execute this one first. And once this is completed, I want to execute one SQL task. What I want to do execute as just update everything to USD. I want to update all the values to the USD currency, right? At the same time, what I want to do is, I want, once this is done, I want to send an email to the administrator saying that currency file is available. Send email to admin, right? And if there is a failure, in this process, also I want to send an email to admin. So what I can do is, I can take the precedence constraint from here, I can put it here. So what this is very important, when I see it as a green color, it means it is success. I repeat, when I see it as green color, it means it is success. When I see it as red color, it is failure. But how can I set whether it is a green color or a red color? By default it is showing as success. But what I want is, if it is success, I want it go to here. But if it is failure, I want to directly send an email. What I want to do is just double click. You have few options here, right? So what is the value available here? Value available is a success, failure and completion. 3 values. Failure. What happened? It turned into red color. So if there is any problem in loading this currency file, I will send an email to administrator saying that it's a failure. If it is success, I will update everything to the USD values and I'll send an email to administrator saying that it is success based on the scenario. So this type of things I can do. But there are some chances that even though if it is a failure or a success, once this completes, what I want to do is, I want to keep a record in my database saying that this particular process is completed at this time. So what I can do is, I can take a execute SQL task. I don't mind whether it is a success or failure. What I want to do is, even if it is success or failure, I want to update the log. So update table log. Even if it's success or failure, I want to do it. In that, what should I do is, I should double click it, go here and go completion. And this is in blue color, right? So I can save the project by going here and save, right? So this is how it works. These are called as precedence constraints. But we have more topics about the precedence constraints later part of the session, and we have some few properties to learn about that. So this is exactly equal to the concept of exception handling the programming language. If someone is from the programming language, you have this one, right? Try, catch and final in the oops concept. You have tries, you will try that, but if everything is success, it will still be in the try. If there is a failure, it goes to the catch, right? And whether it executes a try or catch, finally it goes to the finally. It's not finally, it's finally. It goes to the finally, right? So it is something also like this. If it's success goes here, failure goes here. Whether it is success or failure, doesn't mind, just go here. So this is how things can be handled from the precedence constraints, right? So any questions in mind, just put it in the chat window. We'll try to answer it later. Okay, so these are the things I have, but I have some scenarios to explain you. Okay, so I have some scenarios to explain you. Okay, so I have created 3 scenarios where we are doing the control flow items. Okay, so I want to design a package to load employees Excel sheet to table called new hires. Okay. Okay, so one input before answering the before doing these things, right? So we are using a database called AdventureWorks. Okay, so in SQL Server there is a database called AdventureWorks, which is available online also. This is a sample database from Microsoft. Okay, so this is a retail database where it has the sales information. Okay, so AdventureWorks is, maybe you can consider that as a company where it has a sales information inside it. Okay, so there is a table called new hires in this database. So what we want to do is, the question is something like this: design a package to load employees Excel sheet. So there is a Excel sheet of employees. with some format, and what we want to do is we want to load that Excel sheet into a table called new hires. Okay, so what I'll do is like I'll go here. Okay, so I'll show you. I have the table. I have some sample files here. What I have is I have an Excel sheet called employees. Right. So I have some employee information here. I have the national ID number, login ID, so which is related to the employee information. Right. So what I'll do is I'll just cancel this. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to load this employee data into a table called new hires. Okay. So if I go back to the SQL server and connect to my server, I just right click and connect to SQL server. I hope everyone knows how to log into the management studio. Okay, so this is a place where the management studio is maintained. Okay, so management studio is a software to connect to the SQL server database. Okay, when you install SQL server 2014 or other version, what you have is, if you go to all programs, you have a tool called SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, once you click this, what happens is it will give you the same window like this. It will give you the same window like this. What you have to do is you have to give the SQL server name, whatever you have given during the installation. And very important thing, if someone is not from the SQL server background, so I'll try to, if you are from a Java background or other background, very important thing you should know about the SQL server is we have a server name which is our host name. Okay, so whatever the portion I am highlighting here, this is the host name of my computer. Okay, this is the host name of my computer. So what SQL server does is to support multiple installation in the same laptop. To support the multiple installation in the same server, Microsoft has come up with a concept called instance. Okay, so the portion which I am highlighting is called a concept of instance. So instance is an instance where it is pointing to some version of SQL server, right? Example, you are having SQL server 2005 server, right? When you are having SQL server 2005 server, you can give your instance name as SQL05. Okay, so that it knows it should go to the SQL server 2005 version. When you are installing 2008 version, maybe you can give the instance name of SQL08 so that it goes to the 2008 version of the software. So if you are installing 2014, maybe you can give the name as SQL Server 2014, right? So which goes to the 2014 version of the database. So to point to the different versions of the databases within the same server, we can use the concept of instance. Okay. So if someone is from the Oracle background or some other background, so this is very important to learn on the SQL Server side. So I am connecting to my 2008 version of the instance in my local computer. This is my host name and this is my instance. So this instance you will give at the time of installation of SQL Server. So please remember the instance name when you are installing the SQL Server. Okay, and one more thing is, like if someone is logging here for the first time, there are two authentication modes. One is Windows authentication mode, second one is the SQL Server authentication mode. So Windows authentication is something like based on your Windows user ID and password. If it has the permissions in SQL Server, it will automatically take you to the required permission set. Okay, if you don't have a Windows authentication, if you have a username and password to log into the SQL Server, then you can put a user ID password here. So in my system I have Windows authentication. I'll go to the connect, and once I go here, if someone is seeing this screen for the first time, you have the list of databases available here. Okay, so I'll go to the table called database called AdventureWorks. Okay, so this AdventureWorks, here I have a table called select star from human resources dot new hires. So this is a table. So what I have is, I don't have any data in this table, right? So I just did a select star from human resources dot new hires. I don't have any data in this particular table. What I want to do is, from the Excel file, what I have shown you earlier, I want to load this Excel sheet data into this table. This is my scenario. I want to load this Excel sheet data into this table. So how I can do that using the SSIS? So I'll just go to here, okay, and I will do execute. I'm just going to execute the SQL setup package. So for this, my question is my load Excel sheet data to a SQL table. So what is the source? Source will be Excel sheet, right? So how can I take the source as Excel sheet? So here what we are doing, what kind of concept we are doing? We are doing a concept of data flow task. So this is very important. When you are doing for the first time, you will hear about the scenario. This is the scenario. Design a package to load employees Excel sheet to table new hires. So you have to interpret this question into the technical terms. So what you have to do is load employees Excel. Okay, he is talking about the load to a table called new hires. He is talking about the loading into a destination. It means that there is a source here. So there is a source called Excel sheet and there is a destination called new hires table. So we have to take from source and load into the destination. So when I talk about the source and destination, I am talking about ETL. So ETL can be done in which task? Data flow task, right? So what I can do is I can take a data flow task. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll rename this F2 DFT. I'll do is a DFT load underscore employee underscore new hires. Okay. So I am taking a data flow task to do this operation. So if I double click here, what is my source? Source will be Excel sheet. What is my source? Source is Excel sheet. Am I right? Okay. So to take the source as Excel sheet, in 2014 there is a new concept. Okay. If you don't understand what source you take, what you should do is there are two favorite components here, right? One is source assistant, second one is the destination assistant. So I'll double click on the source assistant. So what is my source? My source is Excel sheet. Okay. So did I set up any connection manager? Did I set up any connection to the Excel? I did not. So what I'll do is I'll click new and I'll click OK. So what it is doing is I am setting up a new connection to the Excel sheet. So it is asking where is your Excel file located. I'll browse and I'll go to the path where my Excel file is located. I just copied that, okay, that path from my system and I click open. Right, I copied that path and I have a table Excel sheet called employees. Okay, and you should say that what kind of version is it? Is it a XLS or XLSX? If you go back to my file, if you see the extension, my worksheet is a 97/2003 worksheet, which is in the format of XLS, .XLS format. Okay, so you should mention that information. So it says 97/2003. If it is a new Excel sheet, which is XLSX, if it is XLSX, then you mention it as Excel 2007. Okay. So you have to tell whether your first row has a column names or not. If you go back to the Excel, maybe you can see that your first row has the column names. This first row is the column names, right? So you have to tell that, okay, yes, I have first row as a column names in my Excel sheet. Okay, right? My file connection manager called Excel sheet is created here, right? So what I'll do is I'll rename it. I'll rename it as Excel underscore employees. This is the connection for my Excel sheet. Okay, this is the connection for my Excel sheet. What should I do is, it has created a connection for Excel sheet and it has given a source as Excel, but it is showing a wrong symbol here. It means something is not correct, right? When I mouse over here, it is giving me a message called a destination table name has not name provided it. What it is saying is, okay, I know your Excel sheet path, okay, but in your Excel sheet there are multiple tabs. Example, if I open my Excel sheet, what it is doing is there are multiple sheets, like one is query, we have only one sheet, right? So we can have any number of tabs in the Excel sheet. It is saying that yes, I know your Excel path, but I don't know which sheet I should refer. So I should double click it. It is already in the Excel connection manager. It already knows what is Excel employees, right? But it does not know what sheet it refers to, right? So in the data access mode, you should tell us if you're dealing with Excel, just select table or view and go here, and it will give you the tab name. It will give you the tab name. The tab name for my Excel employee Excel is query, right? What should I do is query. Just select query and go to the columns. Automatically it reads all the metadata from my Excel sheet. These are the first row has the column names, right? Based on that column information, it is showing me the metadata. And click OK. Now the error is gone. Okay, so and where should I load this data? I should load this data into a table called new hires, right? So what is my scenario? To load employees Excel sheet into a table called new hires. So new hires is a table located in SQL Server database, okay, which is available in this server and this database. Okay, so I'm loading it to a destination. So I'll choose a destination assistant. To which server I have to load? I have to load to SQL Server. Is it new? Yes. Click OK. So here what I have to do is I have to select the server name of the SQL Server. So what is the server name of my SQL Server? You have to know your server name. So my server name is sandrita-pc_/SQL08, right? This is my host name and this is my instance name. I can use Windows authentication to access my SQL Server. As I told you, if you are having a username and password to connect to SQL Server, then you give your username and password here. Otherwise you use the Windows authentication. Okay, and automatically if the connection is succeeded, you can do a test connection. It says test connection succeeded. And if you click this drop down list, it will ask you to enter a database name. So I can just click this drop down list, and automatically as the connection is succeeded, it will show me all the databases available in my SQL Server. If I go back here, it is the same place, right? So if I click here, these are the list of databases available in my SQL Server 2008 R2, right? In the same way, if I go here, I can see the same databases. So I'll select a database called AdventureWorks. Okay, and leave the remaining things as it is. Click OK and come here. So what it is saying is, hey, you have created this particular connection, but we did not specify the destination name, right? So we have selected server name and database name, but we never gave the table name. Double click it. So it is saying that this component has no available input columns. Do you want to continue editing available properties for this component? Very good, important point. You double clicked it and it is saying that I'm not getting anything from the source. Do you still want to continue? Actually I don't want to. I'll click it no. Okay. If I click yes, it will not have any mapping from the source to the destination. So what I'll do is, as I said in the precedence constraints, from here I have pipeline. Okay. So I have a concept of pipeline in the data flow. I will drag and drop the pipeline like this. So once I have the pipeline ready here, so what does this pipeline will do? It will pass all the source information in the form of columns and in the form of data through this pipeline. This pipeline is a place where it transfers all the data. In the data flow task, this pipeline is a place where it transfers all the data from the source. So I have to give a pipeline information here. So this is my pipeline. Double click. No, it will not give that error. And it has given something else here. Right, what is your table name? Table name is nothing but human resources.newhires, right? I just select here and go here and select human resources.newhires. So what should happen is, the mapping should happen correctly. If I go to the mappings, very important concept, if I go to the mappings, if something is not clear, please clear it off here. If I go to the mappings, what it is doing is, based on my employees Excel sheet information, example, if I open my Excel sheet again, based on this column information and based on the column information in this table, if what it is doing is, it is doing a name to name match, and if the names are same, example, you have national ID number here and national ID number here. If the names are same, it is thinking that okay, this source column is same as this destination column, and it is doing an automatic mapping. So these are the input columns, these are the destination, these are the input columns from Excel sheet. These are the input columns from the SQL server. Because the names are same from source and destination, it is doing a direct mapping. It means that whatever the information you get from this national ID number here, it will push into the table called new hires and into this column. So it is doing a automatic one-to-one mapping here based on the name. Sometimes, like in the real-time projects, everything is not like this. Sometimes you will get sales AMT in your input column. Example, in the real time, what happens is, I'll take another question. Okay. So, in the real time, what happens is, from the source, you will get it as sales amount. But your database column, DB table column, is sales underscore amount. Actually, these both are same. Sales amount and sales amount is same, but as the naming convention is different, it will not do a mapping properly. So it will ignore. So at that time you have to do a proper mapping. Example, employee ID is not mapped here. So why it is not mapped? So if you select here, you don't have any input column to select here. So this employee ID is only available in the database, but not in the Excel sheet. Okay. So let us go to the human resources.new hires. So if you know the concept of SQL server, so to see the metadata, we use a command called sp_help and see and select it and click execute. So sp_help gives the metadata of this table, right? So we have the employee ID column, which is a identity column. So if you know the basics of SQL, you should be already know what is identity column, right? Identity column is something like which you can start with a number and increment with some number, right? So employee ID is identity column. So we need not go specify anything. Automatically it's a incremental number. So that's why it need not be mapped from the source. And remaining things based on the name, it is already mapped. And they just click OK. And it is giving some warning to me. It is saying that truncation may occur due to the inserting data from gender with a length of 255 to length of same something. Example, if I take the gender here. So how much is the gender here? Length 2. Length is 2 for the gender. But if from the metadata it is showing that in the Excel sheet it has a metadata of 255. That's why it is giving a warning. So always you can ignore the warnings in SQL server. So no need to worry about the warning. So what I'll do is I'll just select star from human resource.new hires. Do I have any data here? I don't have any data. But what we will do is we will run this SSIS package now. We will run this SSIS package and see if the data is loaded. Execute package. Okay, so to run a SSIS package, what you can do is right click and execute package. Once you do this, what it will do is SSIS will start. Okay, SSIS, there is a start symbol here and it will automatically change to some other symbol. So SSIS is starting. So let's wait for it to start this data flow task, which is loading the employee information from Excel sheet to the new hires. Okay, so what it is saying is the acquire connection method to call the Excel employees failed with there may be messages before this one. Excel reach failed. There, what it is saying is there is some connection failure from Excel sheet. So why it is a failure, how it is failing, let us see that. Okay. Okay, so let us double click this and go here. When you see this one, right, and it is actually failing. So why it is failing? Because already we have opened this Excel sheet. So these type of errors will occur. Already because we have already opened this Excel sheet in my local computer. So it is not able to read the data. So what I will do is I will close this Excel sheet and cancel this. Okay, again go back here and select no. Now it is giving properly. So make sure that your source files are closed. So this type of things can happen in the class. Sometimes we overcome that and we may not identify the problem within the class, right? So if that is something related to that, I will work offline and get back to you. But here, fortunately, we are able to fix the problem because file is already open, it is not able to read. But the type of error it is showing is different. Okay, so now it is loaded. Now I'll do is I'll right click and execute the package. Now the package is executing. If I go to the data flow task, when the package is executing, I just double click on the data flow task. When it is a write symbol, it means that it has properly taken the data. When it is write symbol, it has properly loaded the data. Okay, so, but how many number of records it has loaded? It has loaded only 5 records from the source because there are only 5 records in the source. It has loaded all the 5 records here, right? So let us see. So let us go back to this table and see if the information is loaded. Yes, the information is loaded, right? So I have given some names of the employees where this information can be loaded from the Excel sheet. If you see this Excel sheet, automatically 5 rows are loaded, right? So what I'll do is I want to stop this package. To stop this package on the top, you have a section called stop debugging. Okay, you should do the stop debugging to stop this package. Okay, what I'll do is I'll right click and execute it again. Again it has executed successfully. Again it has loaded 5 rows. I will stop this package. But if I go back to the table, now it is loading 10 records, but with the duplicate employee information, because the first set of 5 rows is already the correct set of information. Again it is loading the same employee information here, which is not correct, right? Example, if I load it again, what it is doing is it is creating the duplicate records of the employees. But I don't want something like that. Hope you understood the problem. Okay, hope you, I was reading some questions like if I can answer that, but that's okay. So what it is doing is like there are only 5 set of employees in the source, but when you execute the package, actually it is loading the duplicate information, but I don't want that. So to avoid this kind of situation, what I want to do is every time I start this package, I want to clear the table first. I want to clear this table first. What I want to do is I want to truncate this table. Every time before I load the package, I want to truncate it. But I don't want to truncate manually from SQL Server. What I want to do is I want SSIS package itself to truncate the table and load the information, so that any number of times you run the package, it gives the same set of employees, whatever is available in the source, not duplicating it every time, which is leading to the confusion, right? So what I'll do is I have to add this statement in the SSIS. So how can I add this statement? So to do the SQL related stuff, data definition language, create, alter, drop. Okay, to do create, alter, drop, or let me do DML, which is insert, delete, update. You have DCL and TCL, right? So any commands you want to execute in the SQL, okay, you have to use a task called execute SQL task. Okay, so what I will do is I will use a task called execute SQL task to run my truncate statement. So what it will do is I will put it as SQL truncate new hires. I will rename it so that it is understandable format. Double click. Very important task. So first of all, you have to specify the connection. So where you want to truncate this table. So I have a section called connection here. I will select the connection as, it has 2 options. Is it a new connection or is it existing connection? Because already we have set up the connection for SQL Server. It is showing the connection for existing connection. So I will select the existing connection. Okay. So what is your SQL source type? Do you want to give a direct input, or do you want to give a file connection, or you want to put your query in a variable? So for now I want to give a direct input. So what is your input? SQL statement. What is your input? Truncate table human resources dot new hires. This is my input. And there are few other sections here. For now it is not needed. I will tell you when it is needed. Right? We have parameter mapping, result set, and expressions. For this example, it is not needed. So I'm doing only three things. I'm setting up the connection, and I'm leaving the direct input as default, and giving my SQL statement as truncate table new hires. Now this is set up. So what I'll do is I'll save the thing. Go and save. So what it will do is it will truncate the table before it starts. But I want to maintain a sequence. I want to run this first and run this later. How can I do this? I can use this concept of precedence constraints and drag and drop like this. So what it will do is this will be starting first, and once this is completed, it will be going here. Right? So first of all, it has truncated the table and it is loading the data. So earlier, if you see the number of records here, we had 15 records, but now it is truncating the table and loading. We should have only 5 records there. Right? We should have only 5 records. So what we will do is we will run the package again. Right? So we will run the package. We will stop this package. Okay. So even though we are running it multiple times, what should happen? It should not duplicate the data, because it is truncating first and loading. Even though we are running it for the second time, it should still have the same set of data what source system has. Source has only 5 records. Although we are running it for the second time, it should still have the 5 records. Now it has 5 records. If I execute it again, it should still have 5 records. So this is what the exact expected behavior. Right? Even if I run it for the third time, right, it will still pass the 5 rows here, but because of the truncate statement we have put there, it will still show the 5 rows. Right? So this is something we can do using the concept of precedence constraints and execute SQL. Right? Okay, so we have something. This is what which covers the 2 set of examples. So I want to design a package to load employees Excel to table. This is what we did initially, but there was a problem in it. What was the problem? It was duplicating the data. So what is the second scenario is design the above package in such a way that data remains in sync with Excel irrespective of the number of executions of the package. So what we did is, before this to achieve, we have added a truncate statement using the execute SQL task, and we have used precedence constraints to link them up, so that first of all it will truncate the table and it will execute the data flow task. So by this what happens? It will maintain the data in sync with the source system. Source system has 10 records, this will also have 10 records at every time. So that is what we did in the second step. So that covers the second step of the scenario. Right? So design the same package as above, okay, but an email should be sent, an email should be delivered in case of failures in loading. Okay. So what happens is, we have this package set, but the question is something like this: if there are any failures in the package, send an email to some person. How we can do that? So to send an email, we use a task called send email task. Okay, so you should understand what are the different tasks here first. But what I am doing is, I am trying to give you a scenario and convert into these tasks. Instead of learning this task as a theoretical basis, I am giving you a scenario so that you understand what task to pick from here. So once you practice for maybe 5 times or 6 times, by that you already know that what task to be used at which scenario. Right? So the question scenario is something like this: design the above package, but an email should be sent in case of failures. Right? If there are any failures in loading, an email should be sent. Right? So how can we set this a failure? Just click here. There is a green button, green arrow. Just pass it here. But what it is doing is, this is a success message. This precedence constraint is showing a success because it is green. But I want to convert this into failure. What I have to do is double click. Okay, and there is a value called success, failure. Remaining options we will see it later. If there is a failure, just send an email to some person. So how can set the email? So basically, right, to send some email to any person, okay, to send an email to any person, you should have the SMTP server ready. Okay, to send email, let me save this file, 2014-28. Okay, to send an email, what happens is we use the concept of SMTP server. So basically you should know your SMTP server details. Okay, so your organization will have one SMTP server and they will have one user ID and password, right? So what you can do is, currently I don't have any SMTP server in my system, but in the online there are lot of free SMTP servers for you to test. Okay, so what I'll do is, like, double click here, go to the options called mail, and have to set up a SMTP connection. For setting up a SMTP connection, what you need is, I want the SMTP server name. So what is your SMTP server? So for now in my laptop I don't have the SMTP server, so I cannot test it, right? So you give the SMTP server. In that SMTP server, if you have a Windows authentication to that SMTP server, automatically with your name it will send an email to the person. Example, let us say that our SMTP server is smtp.abc.net. This is some name of SMTP server. Example, I use Windows authentication. I know that it will give a failure, and just I am setting up the SMTP connection manager for you to understand. So from whom you are sending? So you are sending from some email ID, right? Some email ID, some Edureka _ MSBI. Right? At edureka.com. So to whom you are sending? You are sending to ABC, or you are sending to admin at edureka.com. Do you want to put a CEC or BCC? Then you can put it here, and you can type your message. You can message source can be a direct input, or it can be a file, or it can be a variable. It means you can write it directly here, or you have your content stored somewhere in the file, maybe in a notepad, and you can take a connection for that, or you can put it in a variable. We'll see what is a variable, and you can put it in here. So what I want to do is, I want to do directly input SSIS package execute SQL setup failed with errors. Please look into this, right? So I want to do something like this. If you have any attachments, you can attach it. Just select and just browse and select attachment, and just click OK. Click save. Okay, so here when I run this package, right, actually it will fail because I don't have SMTP connection set up properly. This is my sample connection, right? So it will fail. So, but this scenario will occur only when there is some failure here. It will go here only when there is a failure here. But if you usually run this package, it will not come here because there is no failure in it. Just run the package. It is success. Because it is success, it is going here and it is loading the data. It will never come here. So what we should do is, we'll put a condition that it is failed, right? So what I'll do is, to make this fail, I'll just right click properties. Okay, so there are some few, if I right click on the control flow and go to properties, there are some few properties here. But if I click here and go to properties, there are some few properties, right? So we can, what we can do is, we can actually fail a package using some of the properties. We can fail a task, right? So there is a property called force execution result. Okay, force execution, by default it is none. What I will do is, I'll do force execution result to failure. Wantedly I am doing it as failure because I want to test something, right? By default it is success, but even though it is success, I want it to be failure here, right? So what it will happen is, even though it is success, it will come to the failure and it will try to execute as the send mail task. As we did not set up the send mail task with a proper SMTP, this will not work. but the control will come until here. Let us try that. See, this is, we have set up forced as execution as failure. So this is even though this is success actually in real time, but it is showing as failure. As it is failed, it will come here, and this is failed because SMTP server is not set up properly. If SMTP server is set up properly, what it will do is it will send an email to that person so that that person can receive the email, right? So this clarifies this example. Any questions? Just try to ask. Okay, let me get some water. So these are the few examples I have explained you, but there are few questions from the audience again. I'll try to read out those questions and try to answer all the possible things. Because this is the first weekend where you are attending the SSIS package, I don't want you to rush through the course, but I want you to understand the basic concepts, so the next 5 days you have ample of time to practice your things and come back with full energy for the next weekend, right? Okay, so there are a lot of questions from Bhaskar Raju. Looks like he's a very enthusiastic person in the ETL. He's raising a lot of questions here. That's good. Let me take one of these questions. One source assistant can read multiple tabs from Excel file, or we have to create source assistant for each tab from Excel. Example, I have 5 tabs in one Excel file. Do I need to create 5 source assistants? Okay, so here in this example, he is asking a topic called, in the Excel sheet we have selected one tab, right? But say suppose you have 5 different tabs in in one Excel sheet. He is asking whether I need to create 5 sources, or I can do it only by one source also. Very good question. There are 2 options. Okay. One option is you can create 5 sources to get the 5 tabs to in each query. You can get the tab information from that Excel sheet. So in the first source Excel sheet, you will get the first tab. In the second Excel source connection, you get the second tab. Like that, you do the 5 times. But that is very traditional way of doing the things. So we have a very beautiful concept in SSIS to perform these type of concepts. What you can do is, we can set this Excel sheet as some dynamic parameters in a table or in some list. Okay, and we can use a concept called for each loop container and put this Excel data flow task inside the for each loop container, use the Excel source inside that. So we will smartly create, when you execute it for the first time, please take this tab information. Okay, and when you run it for the second time, say take the second tab. When you run for the third time, take the third tab. Okay, we can set those properties using the concept of for each loop, data flow tasks, and Excel, but we have to use a concept called expressions. This is very advanced, which we will discuss in the next class. So, but this concept is achievable in SSIS, and it is very dynamic in nature. Okay. Okay, so the second question he has is, once the data flow is created, you are executing directly. But we have to compile data flow before executing, because when we compile data flow, then code will be created backend. Okay, so his question is, why are you not executing the, not compiling the package, why are you executing directly? Okay, so the reason is, when you directly execute the package, it does 2 things. One is, it will execute the code in the backend, it will compile the code in the backend, it will execute. So if you directly compile, example, I created this package, if I compile it, what is the meaning of compile? There is a button called build. Okay, if I go to the top, there is a button called build. If I build this, what it will do is, it will do a compilation, and it will give a message on the bottom here, build succeeded. If you see the bottom message, build succeeded. So this is nothing but compilation. Okay, if I directly execute the SSIS package, what it will do is, it will compile first and it will execute. It will do 2 steps at a time. So that is the advantage when you do a execution of the package directly, right? Let me take some other things. Okay. Why are you not compiling? How backend code is created without compile? Where can you see the compilation code designer? Okay, so as I told you, it is showing the compilation build succeeded, right? So if you go here, if there are any error list, it will show in the error list. If there are no errors, if you see the error list here, it will show here. If there are no errors, it will not show any errors. So this is where you can check whether your code is executed properly or not. In real scenario, warnings not allowed when we promote the code to production environment. How do we compress the warnings in the designer? Not true. It is not true. Sometimes you can have warnings in the production, depend on your project requirements. If the project is too critical and if the project specifications or if the project guidelines say that I don't want any warnings, I have 5 developers to do that, please remove all the warnings, then we can always do the warning set. How we can do the warning, remove the warnings is, by default it is taking the metadata of 255 varchar, 255 column from the Excel sheet. What we should do is we should convert that into 2 character format using some concept called delayed column, and then we should map it. Then you don't get the warnings. So if the project has lot of members to do the design in such a way, then we can easily remove the warnings using the different concepts. Here he's asking about the warning what we got here, right? If I remove this, we got these warnings here. So he's saying warnings are not allowed, but if you don't want warnings, how we can remove these warnings? Based on the error it gives, we use some concept in SSIS to remove these warnings. Possible, but it does not mean that warnings, the packages with warnings also can be moved to production. That is possible. Okay, so the other question is, this question is from Bhavin. Instead of truncating, is there any way to update employee information if not exists and new one? Okay, that's a very good scenario. So he's asking, why are you truncating the employee information here? Okay, instead of truncating, what he wants is, he wants if exists update, or if not exists, then you insert. Okay, to do that concept, we can do that concept. So there is a concept called slowly changing dimension. If I double click the data flow, there is a concept called slowly changing dimensions, which is a concept of data warehouse, where we have type 1 dimension, type 2 and type 3. So we can use this concept and do this concept. The concept is, if the employee information if the employee information is present in the table, then we update it. If the employee information is not present, we do the insert. We can do that using the slowly changing dimension, which is a very advanced topic and we cover in the future classes. He said, other question is, how do you check how many records loaded in the destination database at designer level instead of checking the DB level? Yeah, in the designer level you can check it. Actually it was showing the 5 rows or happened here, and even if you go to the execution results, everything it will give here. Example, if I remove this error, if I go here and check the right click and properties, I actually gave the force execution result failure, right? I will give it none, right? And then save it and try to run it again. Right? So it is, if you double click here in the design level, it is showing that 5 records got loaded. This is the designer information. Or if you go to the progress tab, it will give the step-by-step information. So what it is doing, how it is doing, how many records got loaded, everything, all the information is present in this place. So you can go here also and you can check that whether it is really passing the 5 records or not. Okay. So this is the place where you can check in the designer level. Okay, where do you see the complete error messages, error log or run log? Yeah, this is the answer. In the execution results, this is the run log. This is your log. Error information is also present here. If something is error, it will show as a red color. This is stop button. This is information. This is warning. Right? This is the execution log or error log. If there is any error, it will show here, which is the execution results tab. Okay, so another question from Narayanan is, do we need to create separate connection for separate Excel files? Yes, if it is one Excel file, then you create one connection. If you are having 10 Excel files, example, one Excel file is talking about employee information, you will have one connection here, right? One Excel sheet is talking about employees, one connection, but another Excel sheet is talking about sales related data. Then you should have another Excel. Another Excel is talking about some profits, right? This should have another connection. And another Excel sheet may be talking about currencies. You should have another Excel. So maybe another Excel is for the products. You should have another Excel, because every Excel will have different connection and the column information is different. When the metadata is different in the different Excel sheets, then you have to create a separate connection. Okay, so I'm just, because I'm trying to answer most of the questions, because this is the starting phase of the SSIS. Great. So I think I don't have any other questions in the topic, but as I said, like, I apologize if someone is, if I'm not able to answer somebody's questions, but what you can do is you can just copy the question and paste it back so that it comes to my attention. Okay. Apologies for that, but I hope everyone I answered all the questions. Right. So this is something on the control flow tasks, and this is instead of giving the theoretical concept, what I want to do is I wanted to give you a scenario, take it back here, so that at least when you ask the questions, I answer something that the people are at least aware of the SSIS. Right. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to my PPT. Okay. I'll go back to my PPT and I've clearly explained you these concepts. Right. So these are the control flow element tasks. So right, I was telling you some of the, giving you some of the tasks in the control flow. So it can be, what it can do is it can build blocks of control flow using some grouping and some containers. Actually it provides the flow chart, which is the actual functionality, right? And it can implement variety of functionalities. What variety of functionalities? It can try, it can do execute SQL, it can do a data flow task, it can do a send mail task, it can do a FTP task, it can do anything, right? Help in preparing the data, perform workflow and BI actions. Basically it can copy a file, download a file, upload a file, call a package, all these things it can do. Basically this is a workflow. These are the different things which we can do it in the control flow, right? So as you can see in the control flow, these are the different types of tasks. So as I told you, there are data preparation tasks. So what are data preparation tasks? Something which you can prepare the data. Example, the copying a file using a file system task, or backing up a database, or downloading a file. These are the types of things which are the data preparation tasks. So theoretically we group that into these things, but when it comes to a practical scenario, it is up to you how you handle that, right? So I'll try to focus on the practical and relate to the theory. So we have some concept called RDBMS tasks. So if you go back here, so there are few in the control flow tasks, there are some RDBMS tasks. So what are those RDBMS tasks? You can have all the different RDBMS, like for example, rebuilding an index in a table, right? Or rebuilding all the indexes of a database, syncing a database, transfer a database, transfer jobs, SQL Server jobs, transfer logins. All these things are part of the RDBMS, right? So these, you can do these type of things also. You have some analysis services tasks. So what do you mean by analysis services? SSIS. So there is a task for calling the analysis services executable, where it can process your cube. Very advanced topic, we'll see it later, right? We have some workflow tasks. Workflow task is basically to create the workflow, right? So whatever you do it in the control flow, so basically there are some workflow tasks which we will see it later to how it will define the workflow. You have some SMO admin task, which is a SQL Server management object to transfer some logins or transfer some users, right? And you have some data flow tasks. So these are the data preparation tasks what I was talking about, because I was just telling you the theory, but when it comes to the grouping of them, these are some of the data flow tasks. File system task, example, this is used to copy the list of files from a folder. FTP task is used to download the FTP data. Web service task will be used to call the web service information. And XML task is used to do a XML related operation, right? So these are the different tasks available in the control flow. Okay, so these theoretical concepts you will see it here, but not everything we will do in the class. We will do very important things, and if you have some time, you can do the remaining things and ask for the questions, right? So as I told you, these are some of the RDBMS tasks, so which are available here, right? Okay, so I'll show you some other example. So I want to do a hands-on, right? So what I want to do is I want to execute a SQL task, and I want to do a database. So what is my concept is, I want to use SSIS package to back up a database. So in this, if I go back to my SQL server, these are the list of databases I have, right? So what I want to do is I want to back up a database, right? So how you can do the backup of the database? You can do it manually by right clicking the SQL server, and you can go to some tasks and you can go to the task and you can do a backup of the database from here. But how you can do it from the SSIS, right, is our topic. Okay. So I will go here, and then what I'll do is I'll create a new package. Okay, here what I'll do is, once this package is created, I'll try to rename it to backup DB. Okay, so how can I back up a database? So what do you mean by backing up a database? You have a database, you want to make a copy of it. That is a backup, right? So I have a backup database task in SSIS, right? I can go here and I can search for a backup database task. So it will be available here. Okay, so I have a task called backup database task. So what I can do is I can drag and drop or double click it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to back up a database called AdventureWorks GWX, right? I want to back up this. So how can I back up this? What I have to do is just double click here. So what you have to do is you have to select the backup type. If you are from a DBA background in SQL Server or some other database, you should be already knowing what are the different types of backup available. So, but this class does not explain you what are the different types of backups, but these are the different types of backup options available. What we'll do is we'll do a full backup. Okay, we'll do a full backup, and it is saying that it is throwing an error. This task requires the connections to be initialized. We are saying that I want a full backup, but for which database? For which database you want a full backup? I have to specify a connection, right? I'll just click OK, and if I see the screen, right, if it is saying all database, system database, this one, all user databases. So what kind of database I want to do this? But it is not giving any list to me. So this one, right, this one is not giving me the proper information. So what I'll do is I'll do a cancel, right? And if you notice on the top, there is a button called new, right? The button called new. So it is asking for the connection name of the package. So my connection name is AdventureWorks. Adventure. Just give some connection name here, right? Specify the following to connect to the SQL Server data, right? So what should I specify here? I should specify the server name. So if I click the ellipsis button here, it will try to give the list of server names available here. But if you already know the server name, example, I know if I go back here, the database which I want to back up is available in this server. So what I'll do is I'll just copy it, right? I'll just copy it and come back here, right? So the ellipsis button is still running, because what it is doing is, if you click this, it will try to go through all the servers available in your server. So I have different instances of SQL Server available here. So it is searching for everything, but I want to take one of this one. right? So if you know already the name, you can just paste it or just select from here, right? I can use a Windows authentication. So once you have the Windows authentication, I just give the name here. So name can be anything here. I just click OK. Okay. Once you have the connection specified here, you can select the database, right? These databases. I want to back up a database called this one, right? It is showing specific database. My specific database is this one, right? So the beautiful thing of this one, actually you can generate a TSQL once everything is done. Okay, so this is the database you want to back up, but where you want to store it? This is the database you want to back up, right? But where you want to store it? I want to store it into a file, right? So what it is doing, create a backup file for every database, right? So where it is storing in some place, right? So what I'll do is I'll just copy this part and see if I have the access to this path. Okay, I have the access to this path, right? So what I'll do is I have previous backups also here, but I don't want these backups. I'm just deleting it. Okay, I don't want those backups, right? So I'm just going to this path, and what I'll do is I have already given the backup database which has to be backed up. I have already given the file which has to be in where this backup has to be stored. This is the path, right? And if I view the beautiful thing about this is you can view the TSQL. If you click the TSQL, it will give the SQL command which you can use it for automation purpose. Maybe if you want to use it somewhere, you can just copy this SQL command and actually you can run it from here also. It is giving SQL command, SQL backup database to disk, and this is the disk path with no format, no initialization, and name is this one, and it is giving some database options. This is the SQL query it is running inside those. So what I don't want anything else. I don't want any other options. Just click OK, right? So currently in this path, I don't have anything backup related to the AdventureWorks database, right? So I don't have anything here. What I'll do is I'll go back to my package. Okay, I'll go back to my package and execute this one. So it is because it is a backing up of a database. It will take some time to take all the database tables and load into a backup file. Right now it is showing it as success. As someone asked earlier, where I can monitor this progress, I can monitor the progress here. It is starting, it is completed, and it is finished. And this is the time it started, and it is time it has taken. It has taken 5.975 milliseconds. This is 5 seconds, 0.975 milliseconds, right? So totally you can consider it as 6 seconds totally, right? In 6 seconds it has completed the database backup, and I'm just stopping it because I have selected a small database. If you are taking a database of 100 gig or 50 gig, then you can just forget for 5 or 6 hours and come back because it's too much of information. This is only a 50 meg database, so it will be very fast. If I go here, right, the path which I selected for the backup, automatically it has created a backup called, this is the timestamp, today's timestamp, and it is giving the time also 12:26, which is a Singapore time right now, and it is giving .bak file, and it is a 46 meg file, right? And you can back up the things like this. And hope this understands, hope this clarifies your questions, right? So this is what I have, and if I go to further to the workflow tasks, right? And workflow tasks are something like execute package task, calling a package from another package, or execute process task, these send mail tasks. These are the workflow tasks, right? So what I can do is I can quickly tell you a workflow task. What I'll do is I'll create a new SSIS package, right? Workflow tasks. What is my scenario here is I want to call a package called backup database from workflow task. I want to call like this. What I can do is, the scenario is something like this. I want to call backup database.dtxx from this package, right? So to call that package, what should I do? I should use a package called execute package task, right? Execute package task. So what I'll do is this will execute package task child underscore exec child package, right? So what you have to do is like just double click here, okay, and go to the package information. So what it is doing is package name from project reference. Within the project reference, what is the package you want to call, right? I just have to select, and I have to select the project backup DB, right, and click OK. That's it. So what is happening is I'm creating a master package, which is a workflow task. From this package will call this package, and what this package will do, this will back up a database based on the timestamp. So what is the output of this one? Once you go to this one, currently we have only one backup file, but once I execute the execute package task, it should call the child package, which is the backup DB, and backup DB should generate another backup, right? So here we have only one file, but once the process is completed, we should have two files. Let us see that. So what it is doing is, see, automatically it called backup DB, right? Actually I executed workflow task. If I go to the workflow task, if I see, it is actually executing this one, but inside it is calling a package called backup DB, which is here, and this is also executing, and there is a progress for this, and this is a parent package, there is a progress for this also. What is happening as the backup database is called, this backup database create another backup file in that folder. You go here, there are two files created now. One is at 1226 and another is at 1230. So this is the use of workflow task, and you can call a SSIS package in that way, right? So let's see if there are any questions, because already it's a time up. I don't want you to just expand your time here. So whatever is remaining, as I told you, because we are learning too much of information at the same time. First week, let us put some comfortable time. Next week, I'll try to convert the other things. So I have some question, right? You explained how, I have a question from Master Raju that you explained how to remove warning, but how to compress warning. Want to allow warnings, but don't want to show that my tasks have warnings while promoting upper environments. Okay. So he's asking that, like, you, for the warnings, how we can compress the warnings. Okay, we have some few settings in the SSIS package. Okay, right click. If there is a warning here in the data flow task, if you want to compress this warning, right click, go to properties. Okay, so there are some ignore failures or ignore warnings option here. So just what you have to do is just first search for that one. Delay validation, description. This is the miscellaneous options, default Indian thread expressions, done in optimized board. So there will be few things where we can actually ignore them. Disable delay validation, disable. Okay, this one we have to do the settings. So we will see, like, we will see how we can compress these warnings. I'll look up for that setting, Bhaskar, and I'll tell you in the next class, because all these settings will be available in the properties one, and you can actually compress them. I'll give you the settings. So just keep this open, this question open for the next class, right? So that another question from Bhavin is, like, can child package return any value with parent package can use for further processing? Okay, this one very good question actually. So there is a one-way communication in SSIS package, but no two-way communication. Okay, so this is a parent package. This parent package can call a child package, right? But child package cannot return any variable to the parent package. But parent package can pass some variable information to child package. Okay, so how that will be done is, if you go to the properties and there is a section for configurations, right? in the configuration, if you enable the configurations, there is a concept called parent variable, parent package variable. So using the parent package variable logic, we can actually pass the parameters from parent package to the child package. This is the concept what we do. But child package cannot return any value to the parent package. So there is only one-way communication in the SSIS. Okay. Looks like there are no other questions. So whatever is the pending thing, I'll try to explain in the next class, because it's already 3 hours from the session we started. And what I suggest is, like, I have some few slides. What I'll do is I'll try to cover in the next class. Some of them are theory and some of them are practical. That's okay. But for you, like, what is the thing you have to do is you have to go through the installation and complete your installation, practice some of the SSIS package what we have given, and you have to come back, right? So there are some pre-work also in the end of the class. You just try to learn those concepts and come back. So but whatever we have explained in the first weekend, just try to cover that, and in the next weekend I will try to cover some of the topics from these slides. Okay. So if you don't have any other questions, just we can drop it off. I'm just trying to check the questions for the last time. Okay, so I don't have any other questions right now, so it means I've answered all the things, but compulsing of the warnings, I will take it in the next class. Okay. Yep. Thank you for attending this session. So hope you enjoyed this. Please come back on next weekend, so let us discuss more on SSIS. Thank you.